Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back with our final regular episode of Survivor Season 41. It's over. We only have a finale left. I can't believe we're actually here. My king Danny is gone. How I always love. I've been really positive on Danny like all season. Now, if I did this to a Victoria or a Lauren or something like that, I have a huge crush on them. When I do it to Danny, nobody says I have a crush. So, like, what's the deal here?
I mean, you should have a crush on Danny. He's a great player. Big fan. We've been a big fan of Danny. We also don't objectify people on this podcast. We've been a big fan of Danny this season. So this totally sucks. Like this, I wouldn't say this was obvious, but it was like very clear early on that it was going to be Danny or Deshawn. And I didn't necessarily think that going into this episode. But it was kind of a bummer. But then with Deshawn's like truth kamikaze, like I was like, I don't know. That wasn't meaty enough. There's just not. There wasn't enough there. And also in general, like dropping like hot goss in the middle of tribal council. That's not going to be able to change anything. Tell Heather that early on at camp so you can try to sway her. Like no one's going to not vote for the person they're voting for because of that.
No, and one of my friends actually texted me and said, "Do you think that Deshawn did this purposefully to make himself actually seem more appealing to keep around than Danny?"
That would have been very smart.
Now we're at the point where you're looking to keep people you think you can beat. And if Deshawn was worried that they're going to get rid of him because they don't think they can beat him, he starts talking bad about people who are sitting right in front of him. That's certainly a way to get yourself voted out of Survivor. I mean, or not voted out, but that's going to be a way for people to be like, well, we can beat this person. They're being an ass.
Yeah.
I think he was leaning in a little too hard. I don't really understand it. I'm very confused by it. Why he did it. I think my friend was probably giving Deshawn a little bit too much credit, but I will say this, Danny and Deshawn, Danny especially, I think played this game. We heard a lot of negative things about Danny today in terms of the relationship building and whatever else was going on. However, I think Danny played this game about as well as you can play the game, being his type, being the alpha male, massive person. Nobody knew he was an NFL player, which we found out tonight. All of these little things, all to lead for him to get 6th place and really go home because of the error of everybody else last week. Yeah. He would not have gone home tonight if they would have listened to him and actually voted out Ricard last week. I think that him, Liana, and Deshawn would have stuck tight. I think it would have been a lot more exciting of an episode tonight. But we're seeing like all of a sudden they're like, oh man, we made a mistake. Well, yeah, you made a mistake. Like Ricard you're giving Ricard life. Stop that.
Yeah.
Why would you give Ricard life? He is proven to win all of these challenges. He's very good at everything out there. He's built good relationships with everybody on the jury, at least from what we've seen. And he's a threat to do everything well for the rest of the game. You gave him life. And I did like that on Danny's way out. We did kind of get a little bit of hero music. And we got that he was correct. And that makes me feel really good because it's important to me that Danny was viewed as correct. Deshawn also viewed as correct here. Deshawn's starting to get a little bit more of a negative light, which confuses me down the stretch here. Are his winning chances slipping going into this finale? Does he have no shot at this point?
I don't know. I actually think that earlier in this episode where they're having, Deshawn, Erica, and Xander, the weirdest group of 3 ever, are having that reward together. I actually think Deshawn makes a very smart pitch to them and says, the 3 of us all are playing a very different game. So we always talk about like, if it's Danny, Deshawn, and Erica, then Erica can be the one person who's like, oh, I played something different from them. This way, all 3 of them are seemingly on a level playing field. And I think he knows he could still beat the 2 of them. I actually think that was a really good pitch. So I think, I don't know. I mean, if he wins, I think that would be great because we would see like some complexity from a winner. But at the same time, I guess I'm not really answering your question, but I have not. I'll
Very
get there.
Political, Alexa. You're a politician.
I'll get there in a second.
No answer.
I have 2. Seriously, I'm just going to filibuster the rest of this podcast.
Yeah, you're doing great.
I think, okay, I'll answer that and then I will talk about the other thing I want to talk about. I don't think his chances have lowered because I don't think there are many other options. I think if Ricard gets to the end, he wins. I think 100%. If Xander gets to the end, I
think he doesn't win.
I don't think Xander's stock has risen or fallen after this episode. And Danny's gone. I think Deshawn would beat Erica. And I also think Deshawn would beat Heather, and unless I'm missing somebody else, which I don't think I am, I think Deshaun's like number 2 right now. So I don't know who he could plummet behind.
I feel like we're spiraling into a Gabon type situation here,
which sounds awesome.
Where I think that Bob, I loved Bob, huge Bob fan. Talk
Big
about
Bob
this all
guy.
the time. Loved Bob from the first moment he walked out there. Favorite player on the season from episode 1 all the way through to the end. The only time that really my favorite player on the season has won. He wins. Love it. Susie, could that be Erica? Kind of like picks up late season. We don't really see much early on. They have a hard time kind of editing it. Erica had a pretty good episode tonight. Xander Sugar, where it's a huge edit.
Oh, that's awesome.
A lot going on here. And yeah, is Xander Sugar. Some Survivor player may have an answer for that one, huh? Like is Xander Sugar. It's like, as I'm watching this, maybe like, because he's getting a huge edit, a lot of casuals, a lot of you filthy casuals who aren't listening to us, you're going to be very confused when Xander doesn't win against Erica and Heather. You're going to be like, what? What do you mean he didn't win? He should have won. Could that be what's happening? Could Deshaun maybe also lose? Like, I feel like we're heading towards a final 3 that it could be that Ricard and Deshaun are the first 2 people gone in the next episode. And then the 3 people we have are Heather, Erica, and Xander. And we go, how did Xander not win that?
Yeah.
Where was Erica early on? I think that's where we might be heading. Maybe not, but I think that's where we could be heading. And that would explain kind of, I don't know, this weird thing they're doing with Deshaun at this point.
Yeah, we got a comment earlier saying, can anybody acknowledge that nobody thought of flushing Xander's idol? And I think it's for the reason that you just said, Phil. I think people aren't necessarily looking at his idol as a threat anymore. And I think now he'll go to the final tribal council and be like, look, I had this idol the whole time. People are going to be like, great, you never, like, who cares? For the first half, he really kind of needed it, and he had balls of steel. And now it's like, people just kind of know that. I can't believe I just said that. So
yeah, thanks,
Alexa. Sorry about that. Anyways.
I've never heard you so casually say the phrase balls of steel.
I can't believe I just said that. So anyways, yeah.
Anyway, I got the whole Xander Sugar thing going on now.
Yeah, Xander's Sugar. We're really feeling hot and spicy.
Can you turn the air on, please?
Yeah. It's getting hot in here. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I think Xander, Erica, Heather, I got to think Xander still wins that. But Xander made a comment tonight, and this was why they didn't get rid of Ricard last week. And we saw this again. Xander is saying to, I think, either Heather or Erica, and he's like, well, I don't want to get rid of Deshaun because Deshaun could be a shield. There really isn't space for shields anymore. Like, you can't save Ricard for much longer because he's not going to be a shield. He's going to win. That's not what a shield is supposed to do. You have to get rid of that person at some point. And I think Xander has enough trust from Erica and Heather where he isn't seen as the big guy to get rid of anymore. I think having 2 shields in the final 5 is not sound.
No. Also, I just want to throw this out. Rachel actually did just turn the air on. She thinks she can't hear the whole conversation. So I just heard it. I'm like, oh, I was joking.
Does she think that you just like yelled at her to turn it on?
She thinks I just yelled at her to turn the air on. Yes, that's exactly what I think she thinks.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel. Not what we were actually getting at there, but yeah, no, I think that because I'm gonna go and I'm gonna overestimate this person, but I think that Alexa, I think that you're missing Erica here. I think Erica has gotten so much credit in this post merge. Not exciting, honestly, but I think that Erica has gotten so much credit in this post merge, and tonight I think she got it again. Tonight, we heard her say Deshaun is better for her game, despite the fact that Deshaun is worse for everybody else's game. And who went home? Danny.
Yeah.
And I think that's like
that was
Erica
impressive.
is the puppet master, even though we're sitting there going, really? Like, how does this actually impact things? Is this really making a difference? No, I don't know. But we might not have seen that Deshaun is better for her game and not for everybody else's game. But we heard her say it, and because she believes it, and because that's what we're being told by the editors, to me, it just seems like, yeah, this is Heather's move.
Yeah, Erica's move. Or Heather, because she's
Erica. I meant Erica. Yeah.
I know. I think the reason I'm underestimating her is because she's not getting credit. She doesn't seem to be getting credit for splitting the Shan votes. But I think regardless, that's always going to seem like Ricard's move. But she was good tonight, and I think Deshawn knew that. Deshawn was like, Deshawn tried to blow her game up, and I actually think she handled that so beautifully. I think one, it helped that his truth bomb wasn't like the most exciting news, but she took it and she was like, I don't like. Who's to say that Heather wouldn't have thought that about me? Like, what? Why wouldn't anybody question that? So she just totally like diffused it really, really impressively. I did like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think being able to diffuse situations is something that Xander hasn't had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Ricard has, been an expert at it. Eric has had to do it. And Deshawn's had to do it. Deshawn's also escalated a lot of situations rather than diffusing them. So I think that's, but I do think, like, again, when we're looking at this final three situation where it's like, well, could Xander beat Erica? At this point, I really do not think so, because he hasn't had to really diffuse any situations. His best gameplay was in the pre-merge, but the three people sitting over on the jury are going to say, screw you. We carried you to make sure you could get this far. We could have gotten rid of you whenever we wanted. Yeah, we didn't, but he never had to play his idol. The extra vote didn't actually do anything. Xander has no resume. He has no resume at all, which I think is a bummer, because I think while he's been a lot of fun and I think he could play excellent Survivor, I think there's been moments of excellent Survivor from Xander. The jury sees no resume. And that's the interesting part about a season, or about a show like Survivor, is if you throw Xander on season 39 and he plays the exact same game, he might end up building up a massive resume because he actually has to play the extra vote. He has to play the immunity idol, all of those things. But on this season, despite the fact that I think he has a very good, very good mindset for the game, he hasn't had the opportunity to make these things happen. It's like how Troyzan would have won one world had he gotten to the end, and then he goes to the end in Game Changers and gets 0 votes. Yeah. You just never know when you play Survivor.
I think Xander's pitch, and like whether or not it would work, I guess we can talk about, but I think Xander's pitch would be what he told us as viewers a few weeks ago. He chose to stay, like chose to be on the bottom. He let his entire tribe go home. He let all the other Yases go home, sort of worked with them, but kind of never really did. Did he vote for Evie? I can't remember.
No, I don't think so.
He did not.
He voted with Evie.
And so he lost his tribe. And then once he did, he goes, okay, I'm going to actively play from bottom. I don't think many players have done that. And I think even fewer have done that successfully. So I do think it's a good pitch. And then he finally gets like the final 7. And then they make this little group of 4 and he goes to the end with them. But I think that's a hard thing to sell, because he can say, I chose to be on the bottom, and everyone's going to be like, no, you didn't. Like, how can we believe that? Like, you never had to play your idol. He did play his extra vote, but I don't think it wasn't in like as flashy of a
Nobody
manner.
Even knows he did it, to be honest. I don't even think anybody, like, they probably know after the fact, but it wasn't done in a way where you're like, oh my God, he played his extra vote. Like, Shan's caught more attention because it was more confusing. So I don't think that I don't think it actually like makes much of an impact at all.
Yeah, I don't think so. Let me think of what else went down here. I liked the challenge. I love Dizzy Bat. I'm so glad that they did that. Yeah. I feel like we haven't had that in a really long time.
Yeah, I thought this was fun. It was fun to watch Danny literally take forever. I mean, you got to think too. You're starving, and then you're also doing that. That's not an easy way to ever regain your balance.
Yeah.
Danny flew through it, but then it was like, what do I do now? He was, I think, the second to last one off, other than Heather, even though he was the first one done by a lot. But Ricard just keeps proving that he's pretty much good at everything. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what it is with him. He's just good at everything. He's good at balance. Yeah. He's good at the endurance stuff. He's good at the puzzles. He's good at the physical stuff. And I love when it's somebody like Ricard, because it's so unassuming.
So
like, you never expect Ricard to be the one who's, how many immunities has he won? 3 or 4? He's won the individual immunity challenges, like all of that. I just think like it's so fun to watch that, because you just don't expect that to happen. And like, I don't know, like you would think Xander would be the one who's going on immunity run, or Danny would be going on the immunity run. And instead it's just him. Yeah. It's just him doing it. It's not like Kelly Wigglesworth, who came into the game being a river boat, whatever, and wins 5 immunities or whatever she does. It's like This is Ricard, a flight attendant.
Yeah.
Cool.
And what I think is his most impressive quality is his ability to stay cool and stay calm. He is super even keeled in challenges. He is super even keeled when he gets called out at tribal council or his name comes up. That is such a difficult quality to have, and it like, to me, that like, this is proving that is one of the most important qualities to have as a player, to hear your name, say like, I need to sit on it, like, let me digest it, and then flip it around, and he doesn't scramble. It's really impressive.
And think about the flight attendant, and I think that it has a lot to do with career, because think about the flight attendants who have played Survivor with Todd and T-Bird and Ricard. All of them are very good at assessing what they need to assess without getting overly emotional. Todd probably got the most emotional, but Todd was also playing with Courtney and Amanda going against people like Jean Robert and James. It's not easy.
I would get emotional too.
I would get emotional too. And you have to live with PG and Jamie. I mean, I'd be going nuts. And Eric might have spoken once, and then that would be an issue. But so when I think about that, I do think that, like, being on a plane, and that's where you work, that's a stressful situation no matter what. I mean, like, it's narrow, it's small, you're confined, you have to interact with people. You have to interact, especially nowadays, with a bunch of people who are being massive assholes to you, because it's just, we're in that time.
And you have to deal with emergencies. And
that's what I was going to say. I highly doubt, and I hope he never has to deal with the situation of a plane going down in any way, or something where there is an emergency evacuation from an airplane. But in the training, you do go through all of that stuff. And so you're in a situation where it's, when everybody else is panicking, now you do have to be able to turn it off and say, no, I need to be the one who is calibrated now. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that in Survivor. When Shan was falling apart, Shan was the passenger who's never been on a plane that's had an engine failure. He has. So he knows what to do, or he can at least see the situation and get through that. Mm-hmm. And I really think that we are watching him just use that expertise, that ability to just stay calm in these situations over and over. Now, granted, we're probably going to get some post-game interviews where people are going to be like, nope, he was all over the place. They just gave him a really good edit. Maybe. But what I'm seeing is a guy who does not allow himself to get flustered. And that is the most important trait in Survivor, because it's normally how you win the game.
Yeah. And like, the most negative thing we've seen about him is eating a papaya and like getting snippy when someone voted for him really early on. And those, like, being hungry and getting in a snit with your sister, it feels extremely normal and common. And being annoyed early on when someone throws a vote your way, also very common. So he's not, like, all of, like, the minimal problems or the minimal conflicts that he has dealt with, like, they weren't that big. And he and Shan, I think, could have gone so many negative ways, but they had a really good balance. I think if it was someone other than Ricard, I don't think it would. We saw what happened with Shannon and Deshawn, and Deshawn's like sinking too.
Yeah, and you mentioned this, like, about, like, him having this little tiff with her for a brief period. There's nobody in this final five who's totally clean. Erica had the whole thing about being sneaky, and they were going to throw a challenge to get rid of her, which is starting to seem like a missed opportunity for them, and they should have lost the challenge, so she would have went home. Heather has just had no content. Xander's had a lot of negative energy thrown his way from members of the cast, and Deshawn's been this focal point of a lot of controversy over the last couple episodes. So when you think about that, like, yeah, Ricard's had his moments here and there, but there's no crystal clear, clean Tom Westman type edit at this point, where it's just great. Like, if they try to throw something in, it's going to be so forced that we're just going to be like, yeah, okay, sure. Tom's all of a sudden not the golden boy because Greg said so.
Right.
Like that's not happening on this season. So yeah, Ricard has flaws, but everybody in this final four, or this final 4.5, has flaws. Like, that is just the way it is. I'm sorry. Heather had 3 confessionals tonight. She had 6 all season.
She increased by 50% tonight.
That's crazy. That's not awful. Her fault, though. And I appreciated what she said about, like, I needed to be on this season and all of that stuff, and, like, the conversation she's having with Deshawn. I appreciate all that stuff. It's just a shame that she has been totally, totally ignored.
Yeah, it just sucks. And I get, like, here's the thing. Like, I hate comparing the Chelsea Townsend situation, but you could have given Heather 5 confessionals throughout the entire post-merge, and Shan still would have been the focal point. Nasir still would have been like the focal point. Like Heather is in the finale. Like at least try to lie to us.
I think
about
she
the fact
still
that
has
she
more
isn't Shan.
confessionals than Troy Zan did in his second season.
Yeah, it's insane. It's just if this type of player is going to get this far, I would love to be more invested in Heather. I would love to be upset when she inevitably doesn't win. But I don't know much about her. And if she went home in Nasir's place, fine. But she's at the finale. And now to me, it's a Final Four. You just said it's a Final Four. Like, don't like, not to disrespect her like that, but like, I don't know, don't disrespect her placement like that. It's the Allison thing. It's the Allison thing.
It's not our fault that she didn't get this edit. And so like when I'm being dismissive of Heather, I'm not the one making millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it is, that thousands of dollars to be dismissive of Heather. Like we're not. Like it's like,
oh, I'm speaking that production is being disrespectful.
Yeah, like if we're not going to get content, it's like, okay, like I have to disregard. But tonight she had 4 confessionals. She didn't have 3, she had 4. So she is actually in double digits. She has hit double digits. She is, for anybody counting at home, she is 5 confessionals away from Natalie White. So she gets 5 confessionals in this finale. She will have just as many confessionals as Natalie White did in her winning season of Survivor Samoa.
That's so upsetting.
Woof. So Heather could still win this game as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, so what do you think about the end of this episode, how it ended, where they said the final 5 are going to go live on a new beach? Does this have an impact on the game at all? Do we think that there's going to be a twist or something that's in there? Why do you think they're doing this? Especially there's 3 days left.
I think Jeff's just doing it. I don't mind it. Like I don't know. I mean, you wanted to make this hard for them, like make it damn hard for them. So clearly something's there because you see everyone running around like chickens, like jumping, like looking for some piece of paper at that beach. I don't know what it is because Danny did not find that idol. I was so hoping we were going to get an Amanda Kimmel situation with that. So I don't imagine it would be an idol because it has to be played that exact night, but it could be. I mean, Dean got an idol nullifier, I think, at this time last year, at this time in 39. So I'm not sure. There's clearly something. I think it would be very funny if the final 3 doesn't get a final 3 feast, but that would also probably be really upsetting for them. But I like it. I mean, I think it'll just like create more tension. It will make them more tired. I'm really curious to see how this affects like any kind of final tribal council speeches, because I've never noticed the 26 days until tonight. I think it was really interesting when Ricard said he's only known Heather and Erica for 10 days. I think that says a lot. And that's
he's gone through 6 votes with them.
Yeah, which is insane. This is like every night they're doing this.
Yeah.
So I think like that, to me, it makes sense why we got this extremely random potential final 3 of Xander, Erica, and Deshawn, because what does it matter? Like everyone would be mid-merge at this point. So maybe this would just feed into that a little bit more. But I never noticed their hunger. Obviously they're talking about it, but like challenge performance, I feel like looks similar. So
yeah,
I'm fine with it. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I agree though. It does. Everything does kind of feel a little similar. I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think it could be a good idea. It's just going to kind of depend what they do. I mean, we saw flashes of this in 39 when they had Tommy, Dean, and Lauren and Nora go live on Island of the Idols, whatever it was. I mean, obviously that was a built up camp and whatever, but it seems like they just want to do this. It probably will lead to the exhaustion. I'm all for a final tribal council speech where they're just kind of like blabbing and don't really know what's going on. But I am curious how it would impact the final. When Ricard said that tonight that he'd only known them for 10 days, that's crazy. He's gone through 6 votes with these people. He's known them for 10 days. That's really weird. And I think that's where it starts to impact the game, because now there actually is a much bigger advantage to being on a starting tribe with somebody, because they're going to have known you for so much longer.
Right.
At that point. I mean, you have to think him and Shan have known each other over twice as long as he's going to have known Heather. That's not the case on a normal season when you hit the merge. Like normally if it's a 39-day season and you're the first merge boot, you're getting booted around, I don't know, day like 18, 17, something like that. And then you figure, okay, there's 20 days left in the game, whatever. There's more time to get to know these people. Plus, even if, let's say, Shan did get booted on day 20, they probably merged on day 18, 17, something like that, which means you had those 3 days to still get to meet these people. So you're really getting to know them for 22 days and you've known Shan for 39. This season, he's known Shan for 26. By the end of this, he's going to have known the others for 12.
Yeah.
That's
nothing
weird. And we saw this have a massive impact on Edge of Extinction when all the people who got to know Chris voted for Chris because nobody got to know Gavin or Julie. That could be a situation we're walking into now where if Xander is sitting at the end, maybe he does just pick up the 3 Yase votes because they actually know him.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like a longer term effect of too many swaps. Like when you get to the merge in a season that has 2 or 3 swaps, everyone's like totally fair game because you have no loyalties to anybody. I hope that they stick with not swapping tribes because I think that created for the amazing Shan and Ricard duo that we got. That created now I'm seeing like consistent Erika and Deshawn tension because, as someone mentioned earlier, like, and you mentioned, Deshawn tried to throw a challenge to get rid of Erika a really long time ago.
Really long time
and
ago.
they both were saying tonight, they're like, we trusted each other and we didn't. So none of these would have happened if tribes were swapped. So I am like really grateful for that. I think that created some really good long-term storylines.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that they will go this route. I just hope that they do go back to longer season. I don't know if they ever will. We'll definitely be seeing that in 43, whether or not they're actually going to go to 39 days again. I just think after Ricard said that, I'm like, man, if Ricard gets to the end and he's sitting next to Deshawn and he's sitting next to Xander, the only person from his original tribe is Shan. Does he know everybody else well enough to get the votes? Because you have to think, Tiffany, he knew for 3 days. Or 2 days, whatever it is. And like, I know that happens here and there anyway in Survivor, but he knows her for that many days. Even the people who make it late, Deshawn, he's going to have known for 12 or whatever it is. If Deshawn doesn't make the final tribal council, and whoever he's sitting next to is going to have known Deshawn for 26. It's a big difference. Is it enough time to actually build up a relationship?
Yeah, we'll see. It's and I think, like, kind of going back to the Ricard thing, and I guess Xander now too. Ricard and Xander, they are the only non-Luvus remaining. I think that does work in their favor. I think at the same time, like, Danny would probably vote for Deshawn. I think the two of them are really close. I don't think Shan would vote for Deshawn whatsoever. I think if it's Deshawn, who do you think Shan would vote for if anybody except for Ricard is there?
I do think there's still an outside chance she does vote for Deshawn.
She could vote because what relationship does she have with
and I also think that Deshawn has done a pretty good job of like saving face at this point. In terms of like, hey, this is why I voted you out. This is why I had to go through this process. This is how hard it's been for me.
He does explain himself very well.
I mean, not for nothing. Like, we saw a lot of conversation tonight about how Erika wants a woman to win. And, but also wants herself to win. And like, yeah, there's so much more to the game than just that. See, I think there's a lot of meta going on here. And that just made me think of what I wanted to say when that was happening. But I do think that maybe Shan does vote for Deshawn because if he's the only Black person sitting at the final, maybe she says, I want to vote for him because that's where I want there to be representation in the winners of Survivor. Maybe that's the way it goes. Maybe she votes for Erika because Erika's a woman. That is the way she wants to go. You can't fault that. However, I do think that the internet and everything like that has just made all of these things so much more there's so much more thought that's going into it that is making the players feel like they're betraying some portion of themselves just to play the game of Survivor. And I think tonight we really saw that hardcore when Erika and Deshawn were having their conversation. We saw it the week before when Deshawn was having his breakdown. I think that obviously, I think the internet's a terrible place anyway, but I think that with the conversations that happen there, it puts so much added pressure on these people where just playing a game that is ultimately supposed to be for fun and you get a prize if you win it is breaking these people down because they feel like they're either abandoning their gender, they're abandoning their community, they're abandoning their race. They're playing a game. And I'm not faulting Deshawn and Erika. I'm saying the fact that these conversations are happening so often in a way where it's like if you vote out this person, then that's just because you hate blah, blah, blah. we see those conversations all the time appear on the internet, and the fact that it's weighing on them so heavily in the game, when in reality it should just be like, look, I had to vote you out because you're in my way of winning $1 million. It's the whole Adam Klein to Jay thing. You're in my way. I cannot beat you, so I need you to go home. It's hard to see this. I'm fine with the conversation happening. I just think it's hard to watch like Erika and Deshawn go through this right now, because it's not something that they really should have to feel that weight of the world on their shoulders in those situations. Like, go out and play the game for you, win the game for you. And if you vote somebody out, you shouldn't feel guilty about voting that person out just because they're similar to you. And I think, like, I understand where they're feeling that, but I also think so much of that is external pressure that comes from like this perception, and whether or not that's what they want to be thinking in the moment. It's definitely weighing on them of like, oh my God, have I abandoned them? Which is not a thought that they're going to have if it's not already out there and in their minds before they actually go out there on the island.
Yeah. And I think, well, and I think that was covered in either in what Liana had said last week or what somebody had said 2 weeks ago, but you're right. They shouldn't have to feel this way, because so many other people in Survivor history have never even batted an eyelash at who they voted out. And so I think, like, I don't know. To me, like, I get where they're coming from, because I feel like I would go out in Survivor and never have to think about who I would vote out. But it's like the Shannon Ricard conversation, where Shan was like a woman hasn't won, and Ricard's like, but exactly, like, that's it's really interesting. But I get it. I feel for them, because they should be able to go out and vote who they want to vote out and put themselves in the best position to win. But because of the precedent of how Survivor has been, and the people who have won and lost Survivor, they have to add that added weight. And I think I don't think that's right. I don't think it's fair to them.
No, I agree. And then it becomes, it's that whole like asterisk thing. Well, if there's 7 women on the jury and they're all just going to vote for, it's like, is that why Erika's going to win if Erika wins? I don't think so.
I don't think so. But then I don't think there will be.
I agree, but I'm just saying, like, if that starts to become of the conversation where it's like, well, I was only going to vote for a woman at the end. Well, but like, that takes away from the game that Erika played by you saying that, in my opinion, because to me, it's like, well, I only voted for you because of this one criteria. And it's like, but didn't I also like own you this entire game? Like, didn't I beat you every step of the way? So why can't you just say you're voting for me because you think I played the best game? And I think that's just something that I don't think that's going to come up, but it is one of those things of like in the back of somebody's mind. And if they actually say the quiet part out loud and they're like, well, we haven't seen a woman win since season 34 and I really want a woman to win. But that's not why Erika's going to win if Erika wins the game.
But so I would argue that people have voted for whatever reason they wanted always. Like, I think like Gervais voted for Kelly because he felt bad for her. Like this has happened since the dawn of time. So I think whatever reason you vote for somebody to win or vote them out is completely valid. So I don't think so. I think it has, I mean, I don't know. To me, it is bothersome that people are complaining that this conversation is coming up, because I think this is the first time this conversation has had the opportunity to come up. And I totally lost my train of thought where I was going with that. But yeah, I think it is just presented. I don't want to completely compare. I don't want to compare this to season 39 whatsoever. But in season 39, for the first time I can immediately think of, we saw something from the real world influence the players, and that was so negative. And in this situation, it is weighing on the players in a way that like feels extremely negative for them. But I hope that they are like future players and they themselves are feeling like empowered and are feeling a way, like finding a way to work with it so that they can play a game that they are comfortable with and a game that they feel like they can win.
Yeah, and I guess where and I didn't want it to sound like it was like, oh no, like they shouldn't, but I guess where I'm coming from with this is like, yeah, everybody should vote the way that they want to vote. But I don't think that there should be pressure on the people to necessarily say, I only want to vote this way because of how I feel that it should be done. And I also don't think that if you win the game of Survivor and you're Deshawn or you're Erika or you're Ricard, you shouldn't feel like you won the game because of a specific reason that had nothing to do with the game. Does that make sense? Like,
I
there
think it
shouldn't
does.
be that
I
feeling.
don't think they'll think that way, but I feel like they do think that when they're voting people out, which sucks because I think it's because people have always seen people who look like this Final Five going out a lot earlier than they should be going out.
Yeah.
So it sucks. Oh, that's where I was going.
Alexa's back.
It bothers me when people on the internet are like, why are we talking about this? Like the season, If anybody watched season 4, this exact same conversation happened. So it bothers me when people say like, oh, it's 2021. We need to like have all these like ridiculous conversations. They're not ridiculous. And also they've been going on since the dawn of Survivor. I know I'm about to sound like Jeff here, but this is a social experiment between different people. So don't be shocked when a social experiment yields results of a social experiment.
God, Alexa, you're just the internet. God,
killing it.
Yeah, no, it's true though. I mean, I think I said that last week though, but it is one of those things. Like at the end of the day, Survivor was always about that whole Marquesas thing, of Pascal, Nalia, Sean, Vecepia, and Kathy. Like, what the hell is that? Who knows? That would never happen in real life. And I think that's what makes it fun. Yeah, the conversation is going to feel a little bit more forced on season 41. Because of everything that's going on in the media and everything that was going on last year and everything like that. But these are still the same conversations. They're just happening in a different way. If you go back and watch those seasons, like Sean Rector, I would argue is probably one of the most outspoken people for like equality and such on Survivor ever. And he was on season 4.
Yeah.
He was having these conversations the whole time. Maybe it didn't feel as forced because of the timing of it, because we weren't necessarily coming off of like something crazy. But now, I understand where people are like, oh, it's coming. It feels like, this is being like rammed down our throat, but that's not Survivor that's ramming it down your throat. Like that's not what's happening there. Like it's just something that's been so focal in your life over the last year that, it's going to feel like, oh, well, Survivor's, but it's a conversation that Sean's obviously going to have because it's been something that's been going on in his life too. For an entire year. These are pressures he's been feeling for an entire year. This is something that he's been dealing with for an entire year. So, of course, he's going to end up having that happen and having that come out and having that discussion. So, yeah.
I just think the real winners, Jeff, I love you if you ever listen to this. I think the real winners are us. I'm very upset that I'm upset for the players that they didn't have a family visit. But I got to say, I'm really happy that I didn't have to hear Jeff say, Deshaun, what's it like to love someone? Like, it's just really nice to not have to deal with that. I do think it's wild they didn't get letters from home, though. That's interesting. Not like, I know it's not a big deal.
Was season 41 filmed when we still thought that like surfaces were the thing that were spreading?
Oh yeah, did anyone's mom like Clorox their boxes?
They didn't Clorox the envelope, so like nobody was allowed to have them.
No, it was a year later. I mean, I don't know, depending on who's who, but
I
mean, who knows? You would think the germs would die from the United States to Fiji, but who knows?
They got stronger. But yeah, no, I thought that was really funny when Deshaun was just like, I really don't care. I want a loved one's letter.
Jeff was like, guess what you're not getting?
He's like, bro, you got 72 hours. Like, grow up. You have 72 hours and the game is over. You'll be fine. You'll get your letters when you get to Ponderosa.
Take some veggies and shut up.
Yeah, like this. It's not even a full month. You're going to be okay. Anyway.
So anyways, thanks for coming to this TED Talk.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I know. Alexa, you have anything else you want to do? Or we only 2 more episodes left of this season in terms of us. We're podcasting again, for predictions and one more recap. And holy shit, I don't know what time our recap's going to be out on Wednesday, but I'm going to try to stay alive.
We might be we might have a wild recap. I may have to watch via Phil's cell phone the entire time. And then we are probably going to podcast around midnight on Wednesday. So
might be it's probably going to be
good.
Yeah, we'll see.
Probably a little later. So
might be a Thursday morning podcast.
Yeah. I'll put a little hold on our calendars during the workday.
Yeah.
But we are very excited for Monday's predictions. You thought we weren't going to have a guest. We sure do. It's going to be Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern for our final 6 predictions. Always a fun one. We sort of already gave a teaser of it tonight. We're not going to tell you who it is, but this person may have something to say about some rumors that have been surfacing on my favorite platform, the internet.
There you go. The internet, the best place, the only place we need to get anything from. So yeah, back on Monday. Wednesday's going to be a disaster. I have to work a basketball game that's going to go from 7 until at least 9 o'clock at night, and then I have to get home and then I have to watch the episode. So,
oh God, okay,
we'll figure it out. But
we'll
stay
be fine.
tuned for Wednesday. We'll figure it out. Alexa's going to watch on my cell phone half asleep, and I'm going to just be snoring in the background while I'm on mute. She doesn't even notice. So that's it. We'll figure it out, though. We'll get something in. Hey, we've podcasted on Thursdays before after Survivor finales, so that might happen, but we'll see.
Might be the choice, but we'll talk about it. But either way, we'll definitely be back this Monday with our super special guest.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.